Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving right into Prime Minister Narendra Modi's highly publicized 2026 address in Melbourne. And wow, this was a sweeping speech. We are talking about the projection of hard military capabilities, massive economic goals, and deep cultural diplomacy all wrapped into one. So, we're going to look directly at the source material to decode exactly how India is positioning itself on the global stage right now. We'll examine the rhetoric, the strategy, and what this all signals for future geopolitics. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's break this down. Here is our agenda. 1. The Melbourne Address. 2. Showcasing military strength. 3. Economic and tech aspirations. And 4. The power of diaspora.
First up, Section 1. The Melbourne Address, setting the stage.
To really grasp the impact of this speech, you gotta visualize the setting. Picture this, Marvel Stadium, packed with a massive crowd of 30,000 members of the Indian diaspora. The sheer volume of attendees here really underscores the ambitious scale of this reception. The Prime Minister explicitly noted that the energy was amazing, saying that Melbourne had, in a way, stolen the show with its enthusiastic welcome. It sets a highly energized tone for everything that followed. But beyond just the immediate energy, a gathering like this demonstrates a level of overseas mobilization that very few global leaders can actually command. When a visiting leader can draw tens of thousands of people in a foreign city, it instantly signals significant diplomatic leverage and a highly engaged expat community that serves as a living bridge between two nations.
Moving to Part 2, showcasing military strength, defense, and credibility.
Right, so the speech laid out a very specific timeline to emphasize India's military posture. Step 1 was the Pahalgam terror attack. Step 2 was the immediate anti-terror response, Operation Sindoor. By directly linking the attack to this decisive strike, the address sent an absolutely unequivocal message to the global community. It basically framed India not just as an economic participant, but as a nation with robust, indigenous defense capabilities ready to respond firmly to regional threats. Highlighting a military operation during an international address to the diaspora really serves a dual purpose. It reassures citizens abroad of national security while simultaneously signaling to global powers that India is a proactive, secure player capable of enforcing its own defense parameters without relying entirely on outside alliances.
And this brilliantly illustrates the rhetoric used to get that point across. The Prime Minister asked the crowd if they felt proud when such a decisive strike was carried out against terrorist hideouts, stating, "The impact of those blasts echoed across the world." Notice how this isn't just about a localized military response. That phrasing was utilized to argue that the world is actively witnessing the capability and credibility of India's defense platforms, a clear projection of strength meant specifically for an international audience. The emphasis on global echoes underscores a strategic shift. It's positioning India's security actions not as isolated border incidents, but as assertive moves by a rising power demanding international acknowledgement.
All right, shifting gears to Section 3, economic and tech aspirations, a rapidly growing nation. We anchored this economic section with one massive figure, 1.4 billion. The address framed the India of the 21st century as a nation driven entirely by the aspirations of its 1.4 billion people. And this isn't just a demographic statistic. The speech presented this population as an eager, impatient human capital engine moving steadily to transform the country into a fully developed nation and a dominant global consumer market. For international markets watching this address, that number represents a fundamental reshaping of global supply, demand, and labor. The rhetoric emphasized that the sheer volume of human capital is no longer just a characteristic of the nation, but it's the primary catalyst actively accelerating its domestic and international ambitions.
To capture that exact mindset, the speech introduced a core mantra: grow more, achieve more. The address defined this by explaining that when one dream is realized in India, a new one is instantly born. Achieving one goal just gives rise to an even greater resolve. It's a really evocative phrase that encapsulates the relentless ambition driving the 21st century Indian economy. It paints a picture of a society that isn't resting on its recent developmental milestones, but is instead perpetually hungry for the next leap forward. This is so crucial for global investors and international partners to understand because it signals a domestic environment focused heavily on continuous expansion, modernization, and an unyielding drive toward further economic integration.
And this ambition translates into very specific economic milestones. First, the address highlighted that India is currently the world's fastest-growing major economy. But the rhetoric pushes even further than that. The ultimate goal stated in the speech is for India to become one of the world's top 3 global economies as soon as possible. The text emphasized a distinct impatience to achieve this dominance rapidly, fundamentally shifting global economic weight. By openly targeting a top 3 position, the speech signals to current global economic leaders that India is actively working to disrupt the traditional hierarchy.
It is a bold declaration that the nation plans to move from being an emerging market to a central anchor of the global financial system in the very near future.
A massive part of that economic engine, of course, relies on technological progress. Look at the comparison drawn directly from the address. On one hand, you have the current reality, where India has emerged as the world's second-largest 5G market. On the other, the aggressive future aspiration of developing indigenous, made-in-India 6G technology. By juxtaposing current success with the immediate push for 6G, the speech positions advanced, self-reliant technology as an absolute cornerstone of India's rapid development. So why does this matter globally? While shifting from adopting foreign technology to developing proprietary next-generation infrastructure means India is aiming to actively shape global tech supply chains, establish its own technical standards, and significantly reduce its reliance on external intellectual property.
Which brings us to our final pillar, Section 4, the power of diaspora, soft power, and diplomacy.
The strategic optics of this trip were heavily emphasized in the address. Prime Minister Modi and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had already shared the stage earlier in the trip over in Sydney. They then reunited in Melbourne to address this massive diaspora crowd together. During the speech, Prime Minister Modi explicitly thanked PM Albanese, describing him as India's friend. These coordinated appearances across multiple cities showcase the tightening bilateral relationship and mutual support on the international stage. I mean, think about it. When two heads of state traverse a country together to speak directly to a specific immigrant community, it really highlights how diaspora populations are increasingly serving as vital diplomatic assets, cementing geopolitical ties through shared demographic and cultural links.
And this diplomatic relationship is deeply rooted in the people themselves. The speech credited the Indian diaspora with playing a vital role in strengthening India's global image while remaining deeply connected to their roots. The Prime Minister highlighted specific cultural touchstones that are thriving overseas. In the spiritual realm, the growing popularity of Satyanarayan Katha and Ardas at Gurudwaras. In performing arts, traditions like Bharatanatyam and Bhangra. And in entertainment and sports, local cricket tournaments and the Indian Film Festival in Melbourne. This illustrates exactly how soft power works in practice. By maintaining and actively exporting deep cultural traditions, the diaspora fosters international goodwill, builds enduring community bridges, and creates a highly visible, positive global identity.
So we have just analyzed a speech that seamlessly wove together the forceful military posture of Operation Sindoor, the staggering economic ambition of a 1.4 billion-strong population driving towards 6G, and the warm community-focused soft power of a global diaspora. So, the question we have to leave you with today is this. How will India's multi-pronged approach, strategically combining hard defense, rapid tech growth, and deep cultural diplomacy shape its ultimate role on the future global stage? It's a fascinating geopolitical balancing act for sure, and one we will undoubtedly continue to watch unfold. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.